So, I'd like to call this meeting to order. And can I have a motion to move to executive session for the purposes of discussing a personnel issue? Discussion. All in favor? And, yeah, okay. And that's everybody who's here, so we are moving into executive session. We will be back at 7 o'clock for our regular meeting. Thank you. Okay, and we're back. So I'd like to say welcome to everyone who has come to observe the meeting of the Iroquois Central School District's Board of Education. There are two periods of recognition of guests listed on the meeting agenda. The first is for comments regarding agenda items, and the second is for topics not on our agenda. Speakers may offer comments related to school operations and programs, but the board cannot hear personnel complaints against any individual associated with the school system. Please address these concerns to the appropriate administrator. If you wish to be recognized, please fill out the appropriate form and turn it in to the district clerk. As per policy 1514, public participation at board meetings, public comment by district residents is limited to 15 minutes total unless the board suspends this limit. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. Additionally, no more than 3 people may speak on a single topic unless the board also waives this limitation. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not be engaging in dialogue with members of the community this evening. District personnel will follow up with you regarding your concerns. Please rest assured that we are listening carefully and take seriously what you have to say. Please demonstrate respect by speaking to the issues, sharing ideas and opinions, but not engaging in personal attacks. The board appreciates your willingness to share your concerns and celebrations this evening. Please be advised that the meeting is being live streamed and the recording will be posted on the Iroquois website. With that, please stand for the pledge led by our Alma primary students.
Wales.
Oh, sorry, Wales. Yep, because now I need to go back to school and learn how to read. Ellie. Ellie, come on up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ellie.
All right, Ellie, you can come up with that picture Dr. Dudick was telling you about. Aren't you excited?
And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Jacobs to come up and introduce our middle school students who are here for our student report.
Good evening. I have 3 of Iroquois' finest 8th grade students that are going to tell you what's going on in the middle school as of the start of our 2023-24 school year. First up, Ian Bonchek.
Hello everyone, my name is Ian Bonchak. I'm in 8th grade. The new student orientation this year in the middle school went very well, as I was honored to be able to tour the building with the new students. We showed the students where the classrooms are, their lockers, and we shared what we liked the most about middle school. The tour went great as well. The students listened very well, and now they know where their classes are, their lockers, and how to do their locks. I was able to give a tour to my 8th grade peers, and I feel like that helped to build a very good connection with them. I moved to this district 2 years ago, and I felt like this tour helped me a lot to move in. It makes me feel very good to be able to give back of what I got. The norming meetings went very well as well. In the 8th grade meeting, we talked about rules, regulations, dress code, and many other topics like grades, sports, honor activities, and orientation days. The norming meetings for 8th grade was held at the end of the day on Friday the 8th. We went over procedures, for example, the fire alarm and the blue light alarm. We also went over lockdowns, lockouts, shelter in place, and fire drills. I'd like to thank my teachers for nominating me to speak in front of you today, and I would like to thank you all for listening to me. Have a good day. Brooke Wyattowski is next up.
Hello, my name is Brooke Wyattowski, and I'm an 8th grade student here at Iroquois Middle School. Tomorrow, Thursday, September 21st, there will be open house from 6:30 to 8:30. Parents will start in the odd and then tour 1st to 7th period following their student schedule. They will talk to the teacher for 8 to 10 minute intervals, learn about class regulation, class rules, and other expectations. Parents can then ask questions regarding school schedules. Parents can then tour the lockers, the hallways, and find where their kids' other classes are. The school dance on Friday, September 22nd is being held from 6 to 8 in the middle school gym and gym and cafeteria. There will be a DJ, music, dinner, snacks, games, and more. There will be drinks and snacks in the cafeteria, along with games in the hallway and music in the auditorium. I think it is a great opportunity for kids to get along with others and meet other students. Now presenting Terrence Snyder.
Good afternoon. My name is Terrence Snyder, and I'm an 8th grade student here at Iroquois. Spirit Week is less than a week away, and I think every student here is looking forward to it. Every day we are assigned a certain theme to dress as, such as Pajama Day, Twin Day, and Hat Day. Every morning during Spirit Week, students will be given a slip of paper to fill out every morning if you're dressed that day's theme. At the end of the week, if your slip gets picked, you have the opportunity to participate in your grade's tug of war. On that Friday, we have our pep rally, which every grade in the middle school is involved in. During the pep rally, 7th and 8th graders that participate in fall sports will be called up with their teammates and show off their Iroquois pride. Last week, Friday, we were very lucky to start off the year and have the opportunity to have a connectivity day with the whole school. During this day, we were given the opportunity to really get to know most of the kids in our grade. We did many fun things like decorate and color pictures to put on our lockers for Spirit Week, create banners for the pep rally, and at the end of the day, a motivational speaker, who also happened to be a magician and a comedian, came in to speak to the whole school. This was a super fun experience and an amazing way to start off our school year. I'd like to thank you for listening, and thank you my teachers for choosing me to do this.
Thank you so much for those wonderful reports. Did you just memorize yours? I couldn't believe it. That's incredible. So what I'm hearing is I need to be at school on Friday by 5:30, because I'll be there to chaperone. So I'll see. Make sure you come say hi to me, okay? Because I don't know anybody in the middle school anymore. Yeah. Okay. I will be. And then the week after the dance is homecoming week. We got Spirit Week and homecoming.
Yes,
That's what I'm
correct.
hearing. So we've got some fun things to look forward to in the middle school. Yay. Okay. Thank you so much for your report.
Thank you so much. Great job, everyone.
Okay. And that brings us to our board discussion and news worth sharing. And the first item is the ambassador report. I think that myself and my fellow ambassador in the middle school, who's not here, we get out of having to give a report because we just had the middle school students do it for us. That's great. So does anybody else have anything that they want to talk about? Something if you...
Yeah, I attended the grade 1 through 4 open house last week at Marilla Primary. It was very well attended. They held 2 sessions, 45 minutes apart, to accommodate the parents. And while the majority of the people were there earlier, there were quite a few people that came for the second session as well. And the teachers all stayed. Nobody left after 45 minutes. They were all hanging around. So it was very nice. Got to see the cafeteria improvements, which are awesome. The school looked great. They had just finished up all the concrete and, had started seating. So it looked really nice. It was great.
Great. Anybody else?
I met with Pete at Alma Primary last Friday. Got on his weekly message, so I'm informed on everything that's going on at the school. I missed the first PTO meeting, but plan to be at the next 2 in October and November. And they had their open house this week as well. And I thought it was unique because they had the kids, the elementary kids, participate and do the touring of their classrooms. Normally in the open house, the kids don't come, but they were helped facilitate the meetings, so that was very good. I also went to the ITAC meeting this past week as well. They were very happy about their grant I don't know if you were gonna cover that.
Go right ahead. It
Yeah,
wasn't my report
so
for congratulations,
they,
but go ahead.
Have funding for the next 5 years, and they're super excited about that. They have Red Ribbon Week coming up in October, and their big trunk and treat event at the Boys and Girls Club is coming up as well, and they'll be partaking in that. That's Saturday, October 21st from 3 to 5. Last year, they had 900 kids in the 2 hours and about 1,500 people. So they did ask about the vape sensors as well, which they're now installed in the middle school fully, and they are hoping they'll be fully operational in a couple weeks in the middle school
Yeah,
and the high school.
At the end of August, I reported that they were all in and operational. But then they hit a glitch because there's the Halo cloud, I believe is what they call it, where they all report into, and then that's where that sends information out to what's happening to the principals. The company only put in one of the sensors, so therefore it wasn't coming out. They've since fixed that. So I actually was talking to the head of technology yesterday, and so that's all up and running, and the principals are starting to get trained for when the reports come in, they know which sensor it is so they can go there. The high school are all installed except for 3, and now with fixing what they did at the middle school, it'll be much faster for where they can start to run. John actually was able, this is something new too, John was able to secure 20 more, so we actually have 20 more that have been delivered to the district. So once we get these 19 running, we'll work with the SROs to analyze where we should put these next 20, so we'll end up with 39 altogether.
And I think that they're looking for some just guidance from the leaders of the district on communicating to the parents and the students, or, you know, maybe what the concept that these are going in, what, there's tolerance policy, zero tolerance of vaping,
Yeah.
and what maybe the potential consequences, or,
Right now, if I remember correctly, the first time you're caught, it's 3 days of in-school, second time is 5 days, third days you have a superintendent hearings. The only thing that they might do is for the first 3 days is if you're having trouble with addiction, they would send you to an organization to help you with that. But then if you get caught a second time, you go right to the 5 days. It's not, we do this and you start at 3 days, then the next time, it's you go to the 5 and then to the superintendent's hearing.
okay. Thanks for the update. That's all I have.
Anyone else? Okay, that brings us to 6.02, board goals. I just want to say thank you to everyone for spending a couple of hours with us on Monday to hash out our board goals. We do have them now written. You should have received a copy, and we're going to take this next month to review them, kind of make sure that we're good with them, and we will vote to approve them in our October meeting. Okay? All right. But thank you for taking the time to have an extra work session in there and come up with our goals. I think we have some really really good conversation on Monday, and some good things came out of that, so that's good. That brings us to electric buses.
So with electric buses, we did have a great presentation during the district planning conference, and one of the board members asked if they could come back and do, or they didn't ask them, but they asked, would it be possible to do a presentation to the public so they could hear the same information? So really, that's the conversation for the board. I'm assuming they would want the same gentleman back, and just figuring out what month we would try to like to have that scheduled. Probably not September, just because of where we are in September, and there are some other meetings happening next week, and it is homecoming week, so I would think later October, early November. Early November, and that's really for the board to discuss of when you'd like to get it scheduled.
Early November sounds good to me, because that's not too far away from our budget hearings, because let's face it, the electric bus issue is a budget issue.
When I originally asked for this, I wanted the meeting to be informational. asked for, I wanted the information to be, the meeting to be informational. It wasn't about, one side or good or bad. It's just the more the public understands, the more they can make decisions on stuff. And there's tons of information around this issue, as we found out. I mean, we probably went over, by like 2 hours, and we probably could have been there for another 5 or 6 hours. So it's just information, so no one's surprised by this if it starts to show up on ballots, so.
The other thing about having it be in November, until just a few days ago, the governor and NYSERDA hadn't released the roadmap guidance for how to roll out this electric, zero emissions. If we should stop saying electric buses, it's really zero emissions. But I'll have the superintendent talk a little bit about, the superintendent organization did write a letter to them asking, why is this guidance 4 months late? And it was released, so, but it's lengthy, so you're probably going to want until November to be able to look through it.
Yeah, so I'm still dissecting it, but really having an expert come in and talk about it, I think is even more advantageous than my views on it. I don't want to say I'm a little slighted on it, but I do find it difficult for the implementation, the timeline they have it, for the cost and what's out there. I mean, I think it's a good direction to go. Should it be 100% or not? I think that's a big question that's out there. And what the superintendents are saying is, you have a deadline of when we're supposed to transfer by, but you're already 4 months late in this 5-year plan, so it's only going to get worse. So we don't think it's realistic of what the governor has put out there. And pushing that and causing people to be fearful, and where we're spending a lot of time and resources in something that may not be able to happen, seems like a foolish waste of taxpayer dollars. So that's why we sent the letter in that we did.
Anything else on electric buses, zero emission buses? All right, faculty staff pictures on the website. This is a question that came in from another board member about, do we want to see if we can convince people to take their yearbook pictures and also include them on the website so that we can see who everybody is, and if you're going to the website, you can see who your teachers are. And do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, so this is my 3rd year on the board, and every year I go to Jim Thompson and ask him to give me a PDF of all the staff pictures and where they work. So then when I'm out in public and I actually see somebody, I know who they are, I know what building they work in. And I know at least in the organization I work in, it's everyone putting a face and a name, and where you work is super important to feeling part of an organization and a team, and everyone knows who everyone is. And I thought, it might be a good idea to consider that. Because right now I think we just have email address, maybe extension.
Yeah, name, email address, extension, subject, I think is what's there.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think it's really important, even for parents or even for students, just so they know how someone looks like. So, at a game, that's our athletic director, that's our superintendent. Just so you know, and I think if you're coming in to meet with someone, you kind of know who you're looking for. When you walk in the door, it can be very beneficial. So I also think it's a great idea.
So, to me, that sounds like something that would be relatively simple, but then again, I'm not a tech person. Is it as simple as just creating a space on their web pages, on the district, on their own page, to allow them to upload their photo, and we leave it up to them to do so if they want to, and, if they have a reason not to, they don't have to.
I
Create
believe,
a policy.
I don't believe it should be an issue, putting the picture up there.
I don't.
It's just an attachment.
I don't think it'd be something where we have a space and you say, we'll put it up if you want. I think it should really be a district. You are going up there. If there's a reason you feel you should not be up there, then we would need to know why. There might be something with religion or something with pictures. I mean, I don't know. There could be a multitude of reasons I can think of quickly where a few people might not want to be. but I think it should be a consistent practice within the district, not a, well, if you feel like it.
But
Because that is a constant trouble we have with the website, even from the very first inception of, well, what should be on it? Well, do I really have to put this up here? Trying to have some consistency there, because we always have those that go above and beyond. And everyone says, why isn't everyone doing that? Well, here are the minimum requirements. This is what's on there.
I just don't want, if there is, somebody who has a specific reason why they don't have their picture taken and they don't want it on the internet, I don't want them to hear this board discussion and go into a state of anxiety now worrying
Correct,
about
yeah,
it.
so therefore we would work with those
So-
people. The principals could put out an announcement, or technology could, that this is happening. If for some reason you believe your picture shouldn't be there, please let us know.
I like
Privately see the principal. That way it's private. We don't, I don't need to know. They can just work directly with whoever they feel the most comfortable with.
okay.
And Jane and I, when we had our
We got our
yearbook
pictures taken.
pictures taken, she was all, got her hair done, which it was by accident. I'm still in my pajamas, like, can we meet in an hour? I'm like, all right, let's go.
I'll be sure you know what picture retakes are, ma'am.
Yeah, I know, right? So we got in there, we did ask Jim, just out of curiosity, if he thought it would be something difficult to do. He didn't seem like it would be a hard ask, but,
It would just be whatever program we're using and the type of page, the format it's on. Maybe it's they're next to each other, so you take a little more space. You put them in linear, because some districts have them on and some districts don't. So that it would just be a matter of redoing those pages. And we're going to look at those pages anyways, because in the summer of 2024, we were looking to redo. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Say it during my time, but, so we're working on the app, which we're on track for January 1 launch. But at the same time, we are also looking to update our website, and the hope will be that by July, but really September 1, we'll have that launched as well.
That would be a perfect time then to implement this.
So that was my
Picture idea.
question. Do you want to do it right away? Do you want to? I don't
it's
think
not difficult to do. I
I
mean,
think we look at what work. I think
Yeah.
definitely right away you put up the administrators. Key personnel like that, but then after that, looking at all the teachers
Administrators and school board members.
and school board members.
we're already on there.
Except
Oh,
for
we are?
Yeah.
Yeah,
except for
you're
you,
already
Jane.
there. I don't think it's a big ask as far as uploading the picture, but, I just wanted to let you know that that there will be an updated website, so.
And our technology gentleman seems to believe that it's a very doable thing.
Oh, yeah, he just raised his hand. He volunteered. There you go. Okay. So that's settled. All right, so, is that something we have to take a formal thing on?
No,
All right,
it's something
good.
the board was
right.
interested in, and it's not anything the board would direct. It would be a question from the board. And we feel it'd be a great thing to do, so
There we go.
we'll just see where Mary Jo's in charge of technology, so she'll take the lead on that.
Okay. ECASB update. We do have our dinner with Rick Timms coming up on October 12th. There was a delegate meeting, so you want to talk about the delegate meeting?
Yeah, so there was a delegate meeting last Thursday, I think it was. They were highlighting most of their events for the year, which we typically get from Dave's email, but the ones that are coming up are the district clerk workshop on October 5th, and Rick Timms is on October 12th, and obviously the convention's coming up as well. They did indicate too that there's the governance training and fiscal oversight is available to all board members, not just new board members in the event anyone needs a refresher course. Yep. And what else? I think that was mostly it. So.
Okay. The legislative team?
Oh, you know what, one thing, sorry.
Go ahead.
They were discussing the importance of reviewing the resolutions that we're also gonna be talking about today and making it a point either in a work session, because it's 44 pages of resolutions, and maybe in the coming years, maybe having a work session before the board meeting and before they vote on October 12th. October 12th? Yeah, or 16th. On how our district wants to vote on what's being proposed. So I think that last year we may have discussed it during a meeting, but we're discussing it during a meeting again, but next year we should have a work session to really delve into the
Well,
detail.
actually, last year, there was no discussion on it, and our representative went, and that's what they brought back, is that they felt the board should discuss it. It was Sharon, before Sharon had to go and vote on it. She said she felt awkward with some of them because she knew where she was, but she's supposed to be representing the Iroquois board, so she wanted to be sure the representative, whoever the representative is in the future, would know where the board is as a whole, because we're supposed to work as one body, not an individual.
Okay,
Sorry.
legislative team
It's tomorrow.
meets tomorrow,
Meeting
and budget and finance meets,
Yeah, Budget and Finance meets on the 28th, but I have a conflict. So if anybody would like to go to a ASB Budget and Finance meeting, it's not a lot of heavy lifting, but there are a few things that we were working on, some investment policies and things like that, so.
I think I'm your alternate.
Huh?
I think I'm your alternate.
Awesome, can you make it? Heather, thank you.
You're
It's
on
at
the
6
hook.
o'clock. Yeah, on the 20th.
It's actually a great group.
Yeah,
that's
it
good,
really
because
is. It's a
I can't be there that night either, so you're really going.
We've got to be at the same meeting.
All right. It's not on the agenda, but I do want to talk a little bit about some NISBA things.
Before you do
What's
that,
that?
maybe mention that the board, you talked to Erie County School about
Oh, yeah.
having a training
So,
come in.
yeah, that's right. The board has, as part of our goals, is to bring in an outside person to do some board training. We feel like, we train our faculty, our staff, our administrators. The board needs to have some training too. And ECASB does provide that service, and it is free. Yay! So we have been in contact with the director of ECASB to come in and do a workshop training session with the board. And we don't have the date yet, but
Yeah, we're waiting for him to get back to us on that
Nora's
date.
working on setting
Right.
that up for us. And I think that will probably be done before winter break. Is that correct?
That's our goal.
That's our goal, is to have it done before winter break. Okay.
The other thing too, Jim and I were talking, and we were thinking about, like you and Dave do, going to maybe another school board meeting and sit in the crowd and just to see how other school boards operate. And I heard that Kenton is a very highly functioning school board, and we're considering maybe
Iroquois field trip?
a field trip, so,
You need a
just to
bus?
go sit, yeah, we need a bus, or as a minivan, and to go sit and to observe another school board meeting, just to see how other school boards operate. So if anyone's interested, we'll let you know the date, and maybe we can all go together. If you want.
If there's like more than one person going, let me know, so I can actually call the superintendent there, so he can inform the board why all these board members from Iroquois are showing up. Hostile takeover, I don't know, we need some more taxpayers, we're going to annex a little bit of it on. Just let me know if you would.
But other than Jane, has anyone else been to another school board meeting?
Well, I have.
Well,
It's
Yeah.
actually kind of neat to see, how different boards do things. Some boards use board docs, some don't. Some of them do things in a different order. Some of them, their superintendent hardly says anything.
which is good, because it's a board
I can
meeting,
say less if you
right?
want me
It's-
to.
Yeah, it's our board meeting.
It's fun to see how different boards operate, and there's nothing, it's not I never walk away going, oh, we're totally doing it wrong, but I also don't walk away thinking they're doing it wrong either. It's just, there's lots of different ways to hold one of these kinds of meetings, and it's neat to see the different ways, you know.
I want to say
Play out.
Iroquois is probably known for having the most and longest discussions on any topic, which I think is a good thing, which I, you know,
Which is,
which is a good, it takes a little longer to get
The
things
11
done,
o'clock
but it's
and
good.
midnight
No.
days are over though.
There's a happy compromise.
we haven't
There's
had
a
any of
happy
those. with
compromise.
Okay, so that's done with ECASB. Let's talk about NISBA for a little bit. We're moving up to the state level. They are holding their convention here in Buffalo, at the end of October. The day before the convention starts, there is a free ECASB kickoff to convention. It is free to attend, and you don't have to be going to the convention to be able to go to that kickoff. Social, yeah, reception. So, you know, but it is limited seating, so we want to get our RSVP in as fast as we can. So if you know you want to go, let Nora know tonight so that we can do it. That is the 25th. It's the Wednesday before. And I'm planning on attending the conference. How many other people are going? Keith is going, Heather's going, Jim's not, Chuck's going, Heather's not. I don't know if Bob is or not. I'm not, no? Okay. But that's a pretty good showing. So we'll be able to bring back some really interesting information, I'm sure, because the convention always is chock full of great training and stuff for the board. I did attend a webinar yesterday that was really interesting. It was on mass shootings, and they had a speaker, I'm going to butcher her last name, Jackie Schulkraut, and she actually was raised in the district that was Parkland in Florida, and she talks a lot about prevention and the warning signs and the kinds of things that we can do to try to prevent shootings in our school districts. And she talks about the whole gamut of from prevention to what happens if one does happen. And overall, as she was talking, I kept thinking, oh, good, we've talked about that at our board meeting. Oh, good, we've done these kinds of things. We've created these kinds of policies. I think from listening to this, where Iroquois stands right now is really quite strong in terms of our school safety. The one thing that she did talk about that I've never heard us talk about is the reunification process. She talked about what happens when there is a shooting. How do you get everybody back together? How do you reconnect the kids with their families? And she spoke of one specific resource that is free called I Love You Guys Foundation, and it stems from a shooting where a student sent her last message to her family. But she talked about this as a free source, and I thought, well, that sounds like a great place to start, to see what the standards are, what the best practices are for a situation like that, and to have that planning in place in case something were to happen. And I did reach out to Mr. Schofield to ask if we had a plan like that, and the answer is sort of. So do you want to?
Yeah, and when I say sort of is with our student support team, with a crisis plan, we do have in there, like when a crisis happens. Unfortunately, during my tenure, we've had at least 4 young adults that have lost their life over the years. And through that, they developed of how to do that, how to bring the class back together again, what you do for guidance counselors and that. But when you have a mass shooting, that's on a much grander scale. So we haven't really developed one for a grand scale. It would be scaling up what we have. So I'd be interested in to see what they have and how ours fits in there. And when I say by I, that would be really something the student support team would be looking at and making recommendations so they're prepared to move forward. It would include things like trying to call in people from other areas to for help, for support with that, but it's hard because typically individuals want to talk to people they know. Calling people from other areas is not people they know, but that'd be more helping to triage and getting people to the right group to have, so our counselors and support can meet and talk to people. And we definitely had that, unfortunately, like in the high school, we've had to go through that a few times, not for mass shooting, but for other casualties. So we'll just take a look at that and see what we can do to keep improving.
Okay. And that brings us to resolutions. NISBA, for people who don't know, is the New York State School Board Association. And they put out a series of resolutions, and on October 16th, our voting delegate will go to a virtual meeting and vote for how Iroquois, what Iroquois' position is on those resolutions. I believe there's, what, 47, 44? There's quite a few.
40, well, roughly,
56 resolutions?
yeah,
So,
44 pages.
I mean, we would be here all night if we talked about every single one, but we've all had an opportunity to look at the proposed resolutions, and I want to give us some opportunity to have discussion and give our voting delegate, who's Jim this year, some guidance on what we would like to see, or what we, how we would vote if we were there. So I'll open it to whoever wants to go.
Well, after reading 44 pages of it, I was thinking, what is going on in Peru? Because they have about
I don't even know where that-
half of the resolutions listed here, which I thought was quite impressive. And I really, really, really liked the first one. It's an eye catcher. Where does it say it? It's resolved that the New York State School Board Association opposes any legislative and regulatory mandates that would impose new unfunded or underfunded mandates. Hooray.
And that's when that's sunsetting too.
Yeah. So, I thought that was a good one.
Yep.
So,
Chuck,
during
how
the,
do you really feel?
yeah, how do you feel, Chuck?
We got 20 minutes to hear what you think.
So, when this vote happens on October 16th, so is it every school district in New York State that goes through this?
Everyone that has a delegate representative.
Everyone that has named a delegate who represents the district gets a vote, yeah.
So how many districts is that, do you think?
Roughly 700
Yeah,
are
almost.
available to do it, but I think a majority of them have one.
It probably has to have a consensus.
Yeah, you have to have a
You have a
quorum.
quorum.
You have to have
So-
a quorum. And that was a challenge when we were doing the votes at the very end of the convention, because people wanted to go home. And so there were a couple times we were very close. We couldn't let people leave the auditorium. It was crazy. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a meeting. So I think it's much easier to do that now that they're doing it virtually. So that should not be a problem, I'm hoping.
So when the first resolution gets approved by everyone, what happens next after that?
They go to the second one.
Okay, but no, like, after all the whole
No, I'm not
process
trying to
is
be a wise
done.
guy, I mean, literally,
Then it becomes a priority for
Oh,
NISBA,
okay.
and
NISBA,
they start
okay.
campaigning with
for it.
our state legislators to
Okay.
make it a law.
Okay,
Ties into the legislative committee.
right,
The only thing that it's just worth saying, 'cause it brought up a couple times last year, is when we approve, let's just say we approve 56 of them, our senators and our assemblymen said, you guys need to come to us with 2 or 3, because we're not working on 57 of these. So that's where it becomes a little bit more tricky, and the legislators are interested in listening to us, but they're not gonna go to war for
So
57.
imagine it this way, if at ECASB we have our legislative team and we have our dinner, we meet with our legislators, we tell them the ECASB priorities. It's the same thing at the next level. And they have, NISBA actually is in Albany, so they meet with all the legislators all the time in Albany. And so these would become, the ones that are voted in favor, they become the priorities of NISBA, and they go campaigning in Albany for them.
Are these in priority order?
I do not think
No.
so.
I don't believe so.
No.
They're in no particular order.
That's what I'm just trying to tell everyone.
I wish, I'm saying that because I wish the first one was
I
like,
think they kind of go
number
through, they
one,
see how many
right.
get approved, from my understanding, and if 2 get approved, it's pretty easy. If 56 get approved, then I think I remember they start to cycle back down through, and they put priorities on different ones.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you'll see so many of those are, sunshine.
Yeah. They've been
It's
there
just
forever.
rolling them over.
Something like that one that's sunsetting, I would be surprised if it didn't pop up again next year as a new resolution.
Gotcha.
If it doesn't actually become a law in New York State. So, it might behoove us to start with, Jim, are there any on there that you question, hey, how should I vote on this one?
So I do have it right here.
There was one about mascots.
Was there?
Yeah, that's actually under one that they're not recommending, so I think that's after page 26, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And that was trying to get the state not to move forward with their regulations on it, but the fact they already accepted the regulations, that proposition really doesn't work anymore. They'd have to write a new one saying to change your regulations. That'd be a very tough one to get through because, number one, you don't have a majority of the school boards affected, and number two, the state is very adamant of where they are right now.
Well, and it's already, the deadline for
It's already passed.
making your resolution as a board is passed, so it's kind of a moot point.
It's tough because you got, resolution number 10 is basically when, New York State Board Association, Support Association, that was substantially increase the earning limitations for retired police and law enforcement officers who are serving as school resource and safety officers. That's one that I think that we would be in favor of because we do have a school resource officers. But it's really tough as you go through. It's easy to pick out ones that I think that we'd be in support of than ones that we may not be because there's tons of them on there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard for just to cherry pick them right now.
I mean, I went through it too, and by no means this is a school board thing, but like one I would look at would be number 8, because right now by July 15th, you have to have your reorganizational meeting, and they're asking to be able to push that back later for some school districts. Will it affect us? No, because we always try to have ours as soon as possible because you need that to conduct business. Personally, I have trouble if you have 2 weeks to get a meeting in to start your new fiscal year. I don't see how a school district can function if you wait 20 days to do anything. You have payrolls in there and everything else, but that's me personally. I would not look to move out that far here at Iroquois, even if it was extended to the 20th. I know the 4th of July is in there. We always work around that and have it as soon as possible because we have to conduct business. That's what we need.
Wasn't there a resolution too that, about the specifically hiring, people who have to take a, civil service test that
Yeah, there's let me find it real quick. I have it marked.
and I think that's one that,
Number 27. And that talks about civil service, because right now, the trouble we have with hiring people is the civil service system. It's very antiquated. If it's a competitive position, the tests they take are not actually tests that are questions that they do anymore in the job performance. It makes it very difficult. Like,
someone who works on your HVAC system, they have to do tests on steam boilers. Most school districts are moving away from steam boilers and, are away from. There are still steam boilers in it, but it's a completely different set of skills. They don't have anything on like a Medisys system, a digital control system for these positions. Senior clerk typist. It doesn't have much to do with the skills right now that people in that position actually do. So you have people taking tests, scoring very well. You have to pick from the top three or the other groups that rate the score the same as the top three, but yet the skills they possess that gave them that score might not be the skills they're doing on the job. Even that system too, in scoring and how often they give tests. I mean, right now we're looking to hire for a position, the list we want to hire from, because they just gave a test, we're waiting for it. We should never have to wait for a test to hire somebody.
Does that resolution also include being able to hire somebody, and if you've hired somebody, they don't have to take, they can take the test, but they don't have to be one of the top people, where you can retain a person you've already hired?
That might be under the rationale, but the resolution itself just says supports legislation that amends current civil service system to bring it up to date with changes in duties and potential employees will be assigned. The duties of potential employees. So it really doesn't say how or what, it just says it needs to be redone. And I don't know of anyone anywhere that thinks the system should stay where it is. I'm sure there's someone, I just have never met them. Well, I haven't. You guys are laughing at me.
I really think the best thing for the school board members would be to read them and then send me ones that you have particular trouble with or problems with, because we could kind of discuss this back and forth forever. Right now, there's like 56 of them. And it's weird, and it makes you, like the one I just used as an example with the retired police officers, the DEI committee's review is, they're not recommending that goes forward. So I think that's where it's gonna be very individual on how we do it. So that information just would be helpful to me, just your thoughts.
When do you want it by?
I would say it's the, maybe 3 or 4 days before, just send them to me.
Okay.
Just know what your thoughts are.
Like by October 13th?
Yeah.
All right, I think that sounds good. Is there anything else that a board member would like to bring up, discuss, share? All right, then we're going to turn it over to the superintendent for the superintendent report.
So the first one I have on here is response to last month's public comments. Nobody did come in and speak, so I really don't have anything to report there. But in talking to the president and vice president about this, what I'm going to start doing too is if I receive any emails, I will include these in the report because sometimes I receive them. In the past, I have included them and talked about emails I received, but I'm going to try to do it to a greater degree, and what I mean by that is if I gave one that I pushed back to a principal, I might not talk about that one. So therefore, we'll see what more communication we're getting, because I hate every month saying I don't have anything. So just so people are aware of what other people are sending in. Mascot update. So September's almost over. We have about 32, 33 people that are going to be on the committee. We still have some students that are coming in to be on the mascot committee. We're going to meet with them on the 28th of September at 6 o'clock. There are 2 board members on there just to go over what their charges are. So that way when they come in to talk about it, they're not under a misconception, and when they show up, they go, oh, I didn't know this is what we were here for. And really it's to go over what we went with the board. October will be where the form will be out there. We'll be doing that in Monday messages. Actually talked to my student cabinet. Student cabinet said about getting it out to students. They gave me all different ideas of the best ways to pass it out to them. They even gave me bad ideas, but they said, like pass it out, I said, should we pass it out in homeroom on little slips? They said, yes, Mr. Schofield, that'd be great. Just look in the garbage afterwards and you'll see them. And I said, but some might take it. They said, okay, but then we came up with the idea. Once we pass it out and see it, hang other ones in the hallways, so then they're aware of it. They've been made aware of it. It's not important to them right away. They throw it out, but then they can go back and revisit it by being in the hallway where they can get it. So the linking of that seemed to make sense. They said, send out an email, but it'd be much better if you did a message on Teams. Homeroom's good, but if you could also do a message during the day sometime or on the TVs, that would be good too. So we'll be going down all those avenues because they all can be done. And by means, everyone in the public we'll get that in the newspaper again with the QR code so people can send it in. And if you don't use the form and just want to mail an idea in, that is fine too. Already talked about when the committee's meeting, so the last thing is in here, the board had a speaker come in for the board. Then we had the same speaker come in on opening day for the staff, and it went very well for them. It was really tough for them to hear, but it really gave them a good foundation of how they can talk to students about it. She did offer while she was there that she would be willing to come back and offer her services if we wanted to open it up to the public and say, hey, we're having an informational night, you can come in and hear her speak about this, and her, about the Native Americans and what they went through with the boarding house era. And so I wanted to make sure the board was good with that because, I'm leading through it, but you're also wanting to get things done. So we'd be looking to set a date for that.
I think it's a fantastic idea, and hopefully members of our community will come and listen to what she has to say. I'd like to see that happen sometime in early to mid-October and not on a Thursday, please.
Yeah, definitely, I think it has to be October because that's when the mascot ideas are coming in. So I'm going to reach out to her then probably tomorrow. I'm going to see what she has in her calendar to make it available for her to come in.
Doug,
yes.
I have another question about the mascot that I think that we don't really maybe talk about enough. So I think we're estimating it's $500,000 to do.
Yes.
Is it, that was like a preliminary view. Are we still thinking that it's going to be around that same amount?
Yeah, I really got to give a lot of compliments to John, Buildings and Grounds, all the administrators by going through their buildings. I was talking with the athletic director, and she said, oh, Doug, I'm sorry, I missed the golf bags, the patch on the golf bags, but we think with working with the golf coach that they have an idea to do that. So there are a few little things we missed, but also, we're estimating the cost of uniforms. The greatest, over 50% of that number has to do with uniforms. So therefore, she did the presentation last month of how we're trying to find a group to help work with that. And that would be the piece right there when we have that number, because that's an estimate, that we know exactly what we have to do in that area.
And
where's
second
that money
half of my
coming from?
question, how are we paying for it?
What will happen is it's a one-time expense, and so it will impact, and I'll look at John, but it'll impact the amount of money we have at the end of the year for reserves that we plan for. There's no other way to do that. You don't want to increase the budget significantly for that because that would impact, you go up one year and then down the next year, and so therefore we just have to take it from reserves. When I say take it from reserves, the amount going in, but it could be also in some areas if we can pull from reserves, let's say unemployment insurance, instead of using the full amount in the budget, we transfer that and pull in a little extra from that reserve throughout the year.
So there's no grants or anything that we can pull
There's
from?
no grants or anything that we know of or look for. I shouldn't say look for, but there's nothing out there that we know of.
I thought when I was watching one of the committees when they were talking about this, that they weren't going to be offering any
Yeah, state said they don't
financial
want to do it at all.
assistance. And the rationale behind that was when that original memo came out, how many years ago was it?
2001, I think it was.
Yeah. That school districts have been afforded more than enough time to be able to make a transition without negatively impacting their financial situation.
And actually,
So they just threw it back.
and I think in history that's important to remember is Iroquois did have a discussion back then, and the community
Exactly.
overwhelmingly said, do not change. So it wasn't that Iroquois didn't look at it and talk about it. It was, the committee said, don't change, and there wasn't a requirement to change at the time, it was just a suggestion
And
from the
that's the
state.
thing, they're using that memo, which was not a requirement, as a requirement. They say they required it back then, though.
And it's definitely not worded that way. And like the high school gym floor, we did have a gentleman, who reached out and said that, you know, he was part of the, way back in the beginning when it was put in there, of how it was funded to put in there, and he said that he would like to step back up, and fund redoing that part of the floor. So once we get the price tag on there, if he does have enough funds to follow through with it, that would be great, because that would reduce our cost. So that's what we're looking for with things like that.
That's awesome.
And I actually brought that to the board a month or two ago and talked about it. And you said, yep, that's not a problem to look at different individuals like that.
Okay, thanks.
Wish I had better news for you, sorry. Capital project update, moving forward very well with it. As always, you know, we take the bids and we like to see, we have cost escalation in there, construction contingencies and different things built in depending on where the project goes. We typically do well with that. It's good we have them in there, for instance, across the road when we had to put in what we call the red line, because of drainage problems, because of where the water table was. It's excellent to have those contingencies in there. But we're looking at having about around $1 million or a little over at the end of the project if everything goes well. And when I say goes well, we're pretty much finished up, so we're pretty much think we're there. With that, in order to do something next, it has to be within the scope. So you could say, well, let's go do the bus garage because we could put some piping in for the lines. Nothing about the bus garage was in the scope, so we actually can't do it with these funds. What we can do with the funds is work at different buildings. So we looked at the building condition survey, we looked at the different needs assessments of the buildings, met with Dave Carlin, met with our architect who does do the survey, and they came up with different ideas of what could be done. One thing at Marilla, the septic field is at the end of life. That's an issue. We have some roofs at the high school at the end of life. They're about the same price, so I looked at Dave and I said, okay, would you rather look up or down? Which do you want to do? And he said we'd much rather do the septic field. There's other, and that would eat up pretty much all of it, but we always like to have alternatives in there too, because if the prices come in better, then what can you do? And we looked at different parking lots and things that could be done there. And where you have something called max cost allowance, how much you can spend in an area. So with the septic field at Marilla, there's also some parking lots that could be done there, but the amount of septic doesn't allow us to get to those parking lots. So therefore, we ended up looking at parking lots on the main campus. So when we're all said and done for the money, what we'd like to do, and this might come back to the board because it has to do with money and expending it, they'd like to put out a bid to redo the septic field at Marilla and the parking lot between the school and the old track at that end of it. If you drive through this, or all the drop-offs or anything, or those two areas. Good question would be, well, we have the pad over there to do, you know, you could build, you know, maybe for $1 million, you could put some more restrooms over there and team rooms and stuff. The problem is we promised the taxpayers that there'd be no impact to taxes. The building that we would have to build across the road gets no state aid. That would mean in order for all of this $1 million to be spent, there would be a tax impact, which is why we are not picking that one. The other ones we picked, we will get 70-some% aid on it, which is why we can spend the money and still have no tax impact. And that's why I'm proposing those two. I think they're smart to do, but also from the experts that I talked to in the field. So if the board's good with that, again, it's not a vote, but it's making sure I'm doing the direction to stay within the scope of the project that the board's comfortable with. Because when the public comes to you, you have to say, well, why'd you pick this and not that? And that really has to do with making sure we stay within what we presented to the public and making sure there's no tax impact.
The only question I had, though, is when would, how bad are the leaks in the high school? How spread out are they?
We would be looking at that. Yeah, we'd be looking to do that in the next project, which I'll say was maybe 5 years out. The worst leaks are actually over the boiler house area, so they're not where students are. It comes right down into the boiler area. That's not saying there's not other possible leaks anywhere else. And so the patching there would be, they said it's much easier to patch the roof than it is to patch a septic system. The baffles in the tank have broken off, and so therefore the sludge that goes through there is starting to get out into the leach field, which then could plug it. So that's, I don't know how much people know about septic systems, but I think most people in this area know, yeah, you better fix it. I don't know that. I know we do go and pump them. I know the company we use, I see them here. They're very good. Basically, we call and they show up. I apologize to the residents when they're headed to their house and they turn around and come here, but we have a good relationship with them. And they do a great job maintaining them. And so that's what they're doing. But with the baffles, if something is floating, even if they pumped it the day before, it can keep on going. And they're not all gone, so don't think it's dire. They're starting to go, and there's one that's gone I think there's 3 in there. I think there's 2 high ones and 1 low one. I'd have to go, well, I don't want to go check. Not today.
I'm good with fixing the septic. That's fine.
Is everyone okay with that? All right, and what they're going to do that, because the biggest delay in getting this done is the state of getting the approval of the plans going through. So I know Tim Mertzloff, our architect, is going to get working on this right away. We'll get the perk test and everything done ASAP, so we can get it to the state as soon as possible, because this is actually something that they can do during session. They just can't decommission the old one, but where they would move it would be next to it, and they get a lot of it done, and then over a break they could tie everything in. Okay? Just a minute, I got a few pages to turn here from that. The next thing is, curriculum update. So go ahead, Mary Jo, all you.
Okay. The past 3 weeks and going into staff development have already been and will continue to be really busy. We had the Reading League in today to work with our MTSS teachers on our assessments that we use. Our teachers are currently completing Ames Web survey level assessments with our students, and they'll be going in and doing some diagnostic assessments as well. So tomorrow is a catch-up day for those educators who couldn't make it during the summer for the training, so we want to make certain that they don't miss out on anything. And so they're going to be able to attend that training day. Next week, we have more Ames Web training, so it'll be a full week. And on October 6th, we have our first staff development day. So by Friday, I'll be sending out the plans for the day. UB, Trauma Informed Care, will be here on Friday to work with our counselors and our social workers. And they will also be presenting to all of the secondary teachers on the 6th, as well as our SROs, and our administrators, and our office staff and nurses. So it will be a very busy day. I just wanted to also add one thing to the school app and the website design. We, in working with Erie One, we let them know that we're in the process of adopting a new mascot and new logo. So they know that, and that will not impede. We can still go ahead with the changes. Once that new mascot and the logo are developed, they'll work with us to get everything up and everything updated on the website and the app.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The next thing is the RECOV grant. This grant, I want to say at the end of August, the governor came out and announced there's this big pot of money. John will talk about that in a little bit. They came out and they had a turnaround time that was like, well, I'll say it was tomorrow they wanted the grant in. And as much as I like to beat up the state when they do foolish things, I think is pointed out when they do something well, that was foolish to have it that way. But they recognized it and extended the deadline a couple times. That allowed us to work and get that done, and it was a lot of work. So John, I'll let you talk about it now.
Yeah, so on around August 2nd, it actually turned out the governor unveiled the Recover from COVID School Programs Grant, which has the acronym RECUBS. It's $100 million over 2 years, so $50 million roughly, and $50 million for 2 years. There's a portion that's already allocated to the New York City School District, which is about 40% of that money. But what's left is available to any school district in New York State to apply for. So yes, they did have a little over 2 weeks on the first application window that was open. They gave out a 140-page document that was the guidance of how to apply for the grant. So you had to read that over. That generated a ton of questions. So they put things on hold and said, we're going to do a webinar to address all the questions and kind of tell you how to do this. They canceled the webinar at the last minute. They didn't propose a new date for the webinar. They said it's not going to happen. But they said, send us your questions, we'll answer it, and we'll put together a document with the questions and answers. So they did that. That's about 30 or 40 pages that they then put out another week or two later after that. They extended the deadline, but thank goodness Mary Jo did a great job in dissecting all this information and coming up with 2 detailed proposals that I think will help the students and faculty of the district. And Mary Jo, if you want to expand on it.
We were able to apply for both the learning loss grant and the mental health grant. It was truly a team effort, and I wasn't the sole person working on this. Chris Hershey and John as well, but in addition, we needed data and data quick, and our social workers and our counselors and our administrators came through with flying colors. The minute they heard that what we were trying for, there were a couple questions just to see exactly what we needed, and they met every need that we asked for. So I want to put out a huge thank you to them.
And we don't know how many grants. New York State has not put out any deadline of when they're going to have these reviews done or when they're going to award grants. So we'll just kind of wait and hear, and we'll update the board as more information comes out.
I just want to say that many little birds have told me that while Mary Jo is saying thank you to other people for their help, that this really was a heavy lift and that Mary Jo is the one that was really doing it. And so I just want to say, make sure that you hear our thanks to you for the many, many hours that you spent putting together all the material and writing those grants, and hopefully they'll pay off.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that's the thing, we love the state where they come out and have possibilities for grants, but then you're taking people away from their primary duties in order to fill them out when it's something new. So hours and hours and days spent doing it, but then you have the other work on top of it. So thank you for making sure that was done. John, thank you for making sure it got in, and thank you to all the administrators for providing the data that Mary Jo needed to spend hours and hours working on this for.
Can I just add, what's the size of the grants?
How much did we put in for?
So for each of the grants, there were a lot of stipulations with 145 pages. And the largest stipulation was that we had to be able to match the grant award. So working with John, we figured to be conservative, but yet still go out for it. We, for both of them, it's $100,000 for the first year, $100,000 for the second year, and that's the same for the other grant as well. So there's a lot of caveats about who gets it in point system, but it's like the lottery. You got to be in it to win it, so we're going to go for it.
Good. And what I find interesting is, actually I'm going to do a different number. If half of the school districts put in for that amount of money, and I think John said it was $50 million a year, that means the state would really need
700.
70, over $70 million to do it. It'll be very interesting how they divvy it up. John mentioned there's an earmark down to New York City where they mainly take the top 40% off of it. But that's where we're very hopeful, and they did the extra work because we're thinking there's other districts that won't be able to complete the work. They don't have the efficiencies we have here, or maybe even the dedication, and they won't put it first, so maybe we can grab some of that money too. So fingers crossed, and thank you again for a great job. Strategic plan, she already talked about the app. So really the other thing in the strategic plan is we opened it up last time, and I might change the topic in here because we talked about the fourth grade, what we're going to do with the fourth grade. So that discussion of how the board wants to move forward with that. Why I want to push a little bit on this one of what we're going to do and making a decision is, number one, we already know what it means to have a fourth grade on the main campus. It was 10 years ago, prior to 10 years ago, it was here. We know it can work. We know the implications. People have concerns about the busing. We've been through that. By all means, we can accomplish it because we've done it. The big part, though, is if we were going to do it, what year would we start it? Because planning needs to be done. Because we've done it before, personally, I don't see a reason why it can't be done for next year, especially with moving the UPK out. Does it have to be done for next year? No, we could push it out another year if we wanted to. Why would we be moving forward? Well, if we didn't do this, the committee reported about how many millions of dollars it would be to put additions on or to do a new building to create the right amount of space. So it's really creating efficiencies with the space. And what the public has to remember is the big changer of why we're changing from where we are is because of the universal pre-K. We didn't wake up morning and go, well, we moved them 10 years ago. Wow, whoa, let's move them back. We don't have a direction. We don't know what we're doing. There was a change from the state, and we have another group of students, another age group now that we need room for.
Yeah, well, and part of that, Doug, back then was, we had the primary grades, the enrollment was, so low, and we needed to better utilize that space. We formed the committees, and I was quite surprised, but the community came back and said that for what we would save by closing one of those school buildings, they want to keep them all open. So once they made that determination, then it was up to Doug, how can we best utilize, the space that we have? So, and it worked out well for the time,
And I'm correct in saying that this idea actually stems from another committee, yes?
Correct. There was a committee coming in. So, and I guess that's an important part.
It's not coming from.
Well, I didn't sit there. We didn't do, there was from the facilities. It said there's a committee from the strategic plan, having a committee come in and look at the infrastructure of the district and the spacing of the district. Really not the spacing. The spacing came from forming the committee, and on there it came out very quickly. There's a space concern at the elementaries. What can we do the most cost-effective way to fix it? And one of the reasons we have the space concern is when I was in school, we didn't have as many areas that kids were pulled out for. That has increased substantially. I figure for every 2 classrooms you have at a grade level, you need a 3rd classroom to take care of the students being pulled out. I think that's a fair estimate. So if you have 4 regular ed classrooms, you need 2 more. And that's not for special education students. That's for like RTI and different programs that are there now to support the students.
Yeah, and because with all change and growth, will come questions, but I don't see any reason in delaying it because it just makes sense and it's been vetted. So that was my opinion, that we would go ahead with that for next year.
Okay, and that's the biggest thing I want to have, make sure the board is made a clear decision on, because we've already had a committee that had representatives from the school, had employees from the school, had parents on, had people on it that do not have parents on here, just community members. Do they want another committee to review it again, or should we just move forward with having it happen? Move forward? If everyone's good with that, because just want to make sure I'm I'm hearing what everyone has to say. Or we can do, or you can pause and we can still, I mean, this is September, we can talk about it in October if you need more time. But by October, I'd really need a direction of where the board wants to go, because this has a huge fiscal impact. That's why I'm coming back and asking you, because if we don't move it, then we're looking at the next project of millions of dollars to do additions. I mean, tens of millions.
You had suggested about another, what would be the purpose of another committee made up of?
I don't know of
basically
another
the same
purpose, that's why
stakeholders.
I don't know of another purpose. We did what we needed to do, and that was open to anyone that wanted to get on it.
I'm good with moving forward. with
Everyone's
this.
good?
So we're looking at an official action vote in the next month, 2 months?
Yeah, we'll have to, I think that would be a good way to do it. I want to reach out, meet with the administrators to see what they need for timelines, so we make sure all the announcements are happening and that's planned out, because I want to make sure the community is aware of it. I do know that the middle school was already talking to their PTO to see about their feelings. They were very concerned about, well, maybe there should be a playground up here. Honestly, there used to be a playground out front here of the old II building, and my office was right there, so I got to watch the students on it. And some students played on the playground, but what they really preferred was foursquare, tag, and throwing pine cones at each other in football. Why? Because I watched them do it for 5 or 6 years. And they had a lot of fun doing it. I think it was great for them to do. I'm not trying to say it in a wise way. I mean, they were out there interacting, learning how to play. I'm watching Mr. Goldman stand there with all the kids about up to his waist playing football. Some of the best moments of my day. And, so I think having the right things, I've talked to Buildings and Grounds because they like foursquare. I think that would be smart. I think having them, the recess out back is much smarter, because I held my breath many a time when the ball went rolling out. The students were great. They didn't go running out after it. Teachers had really taught them well. But you always wonder about that one kid running out there into the parking lot when a car is coming through and someone's not paying attention. So moving it to the back, I think, would be much safer. And then if PTOs want to fund a playground, which is typically how all the playgrounds have been put in here, absolutely, we would find a spot. I know Mr. Carlin's already talked about starting to survey the area of where he think it would go well, where it wouldn't impact any of our drainage or anything else. So I'm not close to that idea. It's just, I don't see that as a necessity to have the fourth grade here. Buying them stuff to use and play outside, I think, but if they're coming here, they probably have that with the classroom already of where they are.
I'm thinking too about, like the programs that our fourth graders are involved in, none of those would have to change, right? And I'm wondering if this actually wouldn't be advantageous to something, say like the music department, where they have fourth and fifth grade band. If you have the fourth graders on the main campus, we no longer have a teacher who has to go to the fourth grade.
Yeah, it would definitely help with travel for the band. That was when we moved it down, when we moved it to the primaries. That was one of the concerns. How would the fourth grade band change? At that time, we said there'd be no change. We'd bus them up to the main campus. We are not doing that for the concerts because the music department came to me and said, we think it'd be much richer experience if we didn't do that. So that's why it's not happening, because the music department requested it not happen they said it'd be a much richer program. I still hear sometimes from people saying, well, you said there'd be no change and then you didn't do this. Well, that's because the advice from the department running it was this would be a much better experience. And you try to listen to the people that are in the field doing the work. So therefore that would be a much more unified band at that time.
What other departments might that affect, like the art?
It would help with art. There'd be less travel for art. Phys ed, there's no traveling for phys ed right now. Music would help maybe they might be able to reorganize some of the speech services, because maybe instead of needing a half a person at a building or a part of a person, by having them here, they would do that, because the needs of a UPK program are different than the needs of a fourth grade program.
Okay.
We would not, and people might say, well, why don't you restart the II? Because having transitions from building to building create a loss in a regression. So therefore, what I'd be looking to do is actually taking the code of conduct officer, who's already a 1.0 position, switching that title to an assistant principal position, and having that person looking for the right skill set, where they could be overseeing the 4th and 5th grade, where then 6, 7, 8 would be overseen by the other assistant principal, and then the principal will be overseeing all 5 grades to make sure there's continuity in there. And so with that, they have to make sure there's the right staffing and everything they need in there. Because of how grade levels are divided up, there would be a change in the teachers. I have to make sure I work with the union of positions are transfers and everything else is done that right way. So that's all the planning that goes into it. By all means, the administrators already know we're having these discussions. So that's why some of the things I can say, because I've already had discussions, hey, if we were going down this path with middle school principal, already talked to the, right, Dave, we already talked to the union some about transfers and kind of what we're looking at there, just to make sure I don't see any huge roadblocks that would prevent it from happening the next year. I don't see it. One group I still have to talk to is transportation. We haven't spoken with them. And that would be looking at bus routes and how many students are on a bus.
Because it would change, the 4th graders would now come to the main campus, so
Correct.
it would change which bus they take in the morning.
Yeah, well, it might be the same number, it's just they get on an hour earlier.
Right, yeah.
But I believe there's enough room on most of the buses, but that's my belief. I have to get the facts from transportation. The next thing is board dates amendment. I just want to point out there, number 23.1 and .2, or 02 and 01. There's a state requirement of what dates the vote is held and what date the hearing is held before. It has to be 1 week in advance. This year it has to be the 24th. Our calendar had, or sorry, the 21st. The calendar had the 14th, if I remember correctly, without looking at those. And so we have to modify those to meet state requirements. Yes, it's the 21st for the vote and 14th for it, and that's the reason for those changes.
So that means that the calendar that's printed and distributed has the wrong dates?
It means the printed calendar does have the wrong dates, so as we get closer to that, that'll be where my constant Monday messages are reminding what the correct dates are out there. We'll have publications in the newspapers, and the calendar on the school website will be updated. Probably Nora will do that tomorrow, knowing her. So, and actually, the good part is all schools have to have it on the same date. So the news, all the news stations will be running the 21st when they run their dates.
I just want to point out that this is not, I've heard this same amendment happening at several of our neighboring districts, and even ECASB has to change the calendar. I'm not really sure where the breakdown of why we all had the wrong date, but a lot of people had the wrong date, so wasn't us.
I wish I could answer that, because if I could answer that, I could say, we wouldn't be in this spot. We'd say, yeah, we did it right. And maybe we pulled it from another calendar. The next thing is New York State New School Holiday. So Governor Hochul, and this says last week where I pulled this, so it might be actually 2 weeks old, signed legislation to declare the Asian Lunar New Year a public school holiday across New York State. And what it does is ensure schools are not in session on the Lunar New Year. The reason the governor came is to protect New York's AAPI, which is the Asian American Pacific Islander community, to support them. So the legislation has schools closed for the Chinese Lunar New Year when the holiday falls on a weekday. So in 2024, the holiday is on Saturday, February 10th. So it does not fall on a holiday, or it does not fall on a weekday. So therefore, there is no additional changes to the calendar for this year. However, next year it falls on Wednesday, January 29th, so we will have to take that into account. Now, when they say schools are closed, does that mean it's closed for children, but not staff? Doesn't mean it's closed for staff. This does have an impact with our bargaining units, so we will be talking to them. and I just want to make sure the board and the public are aware of where this came from, and it was the governor just signing new legislation on this. So that is where we'll be going with it next. Anything that's financial, I will be coming back to the board to make sure you're aware of it. So we might be having a few executive sessions just discussing some of these aspects with it. But sorry to everyone this year for the kids, but next year will be there. But really, just remember, still, it doesn't change the number of days you come to school. We still have the requirements for the 180 days for students, and we still have to build in our snow days because of the area we live in. So we still have all the same hours and requirements. It just changes where the days off you have. Doesn't change how many days you come to school. So sorry to everyone watching at home when they started cheering to give you that other other shoe.
I hope that somebody at the state education department is paying really close attention to the dates on the calendar and that they don't accidentally schedule our Regents exams on one of those days. So that'll be really confusing.
Well, and that's where when you look at Wednesday, January 29th, that is typically the week that you have Regents exams.
That'll be
And just to let you
interesting.
know, the year after next, it's in February 17th, I think, is where the Lunar New Year is. So it's not even, I mean, it varies significantly by 2-3 weeks. So good luck at planning your trips. Let's see, the next one is, I received a letter. This is in recognitions, and this was on the girls' varsity match. It happened on the 7th. I received this of September, and it's from the referee, and congratulations to the girls. Great. You know, these are letters I love to receive. Ref last night's match. You enjoy reading the following in what was a very hectic time for you and your staff. Your faculty, staff, coaches, trainers, fans did an outstanding job. Really incredible, helpful, polite, personable young man who helped them after the match. The sportsmanship that was during the match, and so we actually, got a letter from a ref of how thankful he was to be able to coach one of our teams, and I'm sure it was the other team too, so congratulations to the other team that we played that night, but I really liked that, to receive those emails. That was girls varsity soccer. Let me make sure, yep, it was soccer, I just want to make sure my memory was correct. We did have one gentleman on the football team, young Mr. Barry. He did commit to New Hampshire, so congratulations to him. And he is the reigning Conley Cup winner, so congratulations to him. The other one that we did have, another recognition, is thank you to the New York State Police, because in collaboration, our resource officers, one of the things they do above and beyond is they held the car seat, booster seat inspection at Wales Primary, and the parents and staff who participated how to install and check the child's seat, and they installed several car seats now that are properly installed, and they provided free car seats and booster seats for anyone who needed one that came to that free of charge, just to keep our students safe. If anyone knows, as your child grows, you might keep putting them in the car seat, you wonder why they're not fitting, it's because they should be in the booster. So it did help out with that. Let's see what this is. The last thing that I have here is a recognition. Mr. Lauber, he might come at a later date. He was unable to come tonight because we just found that out just very recently, like yesterday on the 19th. Amazing news that he received that the Iroquois has earned the national banner recognition for our Unified Championship School programs. I believe this is the first time a school has won it twice. I think we were the first ones to achieve this to begin with, and he wanted to say thank you for supporting this program, which has been an asset to all our students to be more inclusive. They won't have the banner, unfortunately, for homecoming, so they're going to have something else, so they're working on some other type of presentation. If you remember, even with this, he has gone to DC to show our program in New York State. He's done a phenomenal job in here, and why he's done a phenomenal job is because we have phenomenal students involved. So it's not only for gifted students, but even the general ed students who go there and assist and participate in this. I'm telling you, it's some of the best teams, competitions I've gone to, because everyone, I love sportsmanship, and everyone's cheering and congratulating and encouraging each other, and hearing people cheer for it is phenomenal. That's what I have for recognitions.
All right, that brings us to 8, recognition of guests. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak? Okay, and then that brings us to discussion on our consensus agenda items 11.01 through 23.06.
I want to say we're hiring a great new person because she's very patient. She sat here through the whole thing. So this is Brittany. Hi, Brittany. This is the board. As you can hear, we really do discuss and have business, so you can take that back with you. She's going to be our new psychologist in the middle school, correct? And she was also here for her internship 2 years ago? 2 years ago now. We are stealing her from another district, so if you're watching, Eric, I'm sorry, but we couldn't let someone like this go, and thank you so much for coming and being part of our family.
Welcome.
We're happy to have you.
The other item is, if you look at your board agenda, item 11, that is the financial reports. I did put out a message to the board just saying, where John gave to me about modifying just one of the items on here. And so I did receive a question talking about, is there an opportunity to allocate individual checks into categories that follow budget lines? I think that might be a little difficult, and I'm not sure what the goal is here too, because if it's to monitor how much is coming out of expenditure or the budgeted amount compared to what's expense and what are transfers, that actually would be more in the appropriation status summary. But John, if you want to talk about that more, and the board can ask the questions they have to make sure they're comfortable with the report, because I know John is more than willing to go back to the other one.
Yes, there was a trial to look at that check warrant method. It's a little more concise, a little easier to read. The other one was about 20 to 30 pages, depending on the month. This report that you get is a 1-month summary. It doesn't look from like year to date. It's looking at all the transactions we do in 1 month. So comparing that to a budget is difficult because you're just looking at 1 month. If you knew the prior months before that and add them all together, you could compare that to the budget number. And that's actually in a different page, which we call the appropriation status report. The appropriation status report is a document that is for all the different funds, but it looks at categories of expense. Like, for example, it takes district transportation. It looks at what the budget number is. It looks at our expenses year to date, where we are, and it tells you what's still available after those transactions. So it's looking from July 1st to now. So that's a summary of where we are on budget, I guess. So that may help if you want to look at that. But looking at the check warrant, that's looking at one particular month. It's not something you can easily compare to a budget and know if you're on track or not. You got to use both together, I guess, to count.
And when John says the appropriating status is from till now, the now is the date that report was run.
Yes.
We don't run it right
Not
before
today.
the meeting. So it's not now, it's today. Just making sure that you're looking at the date and interpreting that correctly.
And if anyone has feedback about that check warrant, we can always go back to the old way of doing it if you want, but I think it was just a nicer, quicker way to look at that and cut down the paperwork, I guess.
I guess just 2 quick things. One is, I think in general, all the forms, and we'll continue to look at this new one, I think at some point we may want some more instruction or training going through them.
Yep.
Well, we do have work sessions now. We could add that to a work
that's
session.
good.
Schedule one, yeah.
And the specific question I have, and just, it could be just reading the form, it says like on the general ledger financial report that, for example, like the class of 2023 has $4,112.27 as of 7/31/2023. That class is like gone. So where does that money go?
That's a good question. So,
I can actually answer it because this was a large.
It's held.
This was a large discussion we had back then. Is if they don't expend all the funds when it comes out of it, it actually falls back into the other student government classes, like to the next class. That's why typically that's how they figure out what gift they're giving from that. And, they don't get a check. Hey, we raised all this money. The outgoing seniors don't get a check. And that's a past practice that's been
Past
happening
practice,
for a
yeah,
long
that
time.
we've done, yeah, I guess.
So it falls to 2024.
I believe that's
Next
where
one,
it
yeah.
goes.
And then who determines, is it the PTA that determines the?
No, so I love saying this, sorry, John, I gotta steal this. All clubs are dealt with pamphlet number 2.
Pamphlet number 2.
There's literally a thing put out by state ed that says pamphlet number 2 that has all the directions for how clubs are run. And so that determines, so the clubs actually have to run themselves. The reason for a club is not for the activity in this pamphlet. The pamphlet states the reason for a club is for children or students or young adults to learn how to run a business. So therefore, they need the president, they need the treasurer, and the club advisor is not supposed to be telling them how to fund it, just help them learn how to manage the funds to run a business. So that's why we usually get a ding on these, because every year you have new students learning how, and the advisors know how to do it, but they're supposed to kind of be like, well, this is how you should do it, not telling them what to do, which is very interesting. That's why we have clubs that actually we think are good to have, but do not have financial accounts, because the students say, well, we're not doing fundraising, we just want to meet and play chess. Whereas other ones say, well, no, like student government, we want to meet, raise funds, and then there's rules and meetings that have to happen for, like, the treasurer has to come to a meeting once a year, John. Yep. Sorry, I had to get that pamphlet number 2 out. I don't know why I love it.
And their funds are kind of held separate. They're not held in the general fund. They have their own system, their own treasurer that oversees their money. And it's held in a different financial system than we have all of our general fund money, and it's kind of kept to the side so they can operate
So
independently.
the actual students get to decide how they're gonna spend this money?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's meant to be, yeah.
Yep, and they actually have a process how they go through it. And that gets to another very important thing. They have to collect sales tax. They're not tax exempt. They are not part of the school. I mean, they're part of the school, love them here, but their clubs don't fall under the tax exempt status. So when they sell stuff, there are actually forms and stuff they have to do with that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry to get so excited about something silly.
Jesters is really, you're really going back now.
We're getting back to the topic of John and his format. Thank you for letting me jump in there, John. But does anyone have any other questions? But honestly, I think having a work session on that would be a great idea. I look to the president, and we can talk about that at our next planning conference or board agenda meeting.
I'm looking at one of the items. We have a music teacher who's resigning, and I just want to make sure that the district has a plan in place for replacing that teacher. We're not cutting another position, right?
No, definitely not. We right-sized the staff at the end of last year, so we need the staff we have. I'm looking over at Dave, Director of HR, and I believe the posting is out already, Dave?
Correct, the posting's out already, and we're already setting up plans to get people in and interviewed and moving forward, yes.
So actually, to the public, word of mouth is a great way. If you know someone who, and unfortunately, how the state does it is all, in the music department, they're all K-12 certified, but they have expertise. We're looking for an expertise in orchestra right now. That's what we're looking for.
Just out of curiosity, when somebody resigns, how much notice do they need to give us?
30 days, and in this climate, we're holding them to the 30 days. Other climates where districts like to work with each other and you're able to find a replacement, typically when you find the replacement, that's where you would let them go, because then they can start their next job.
Okay.
But right now, with the employee seeking out other people, districts are trying to borrow people lovingly for long periods of time from other districts. Thank you. And that's how we get some of our people, and it's a whole different format of what we're working with now in education.
Any other discussion? All right, then can motion, please, to approve our consensus agenda items 11 point, oh, wait a second. Is there a request to withdraw any items? Okay, a request to add any items? All right, then, can I have a motion to approve our consensus agenda items 11.01 through 23.06?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Okay, and motion carries. And that brings us to recognition of guests who want to speak on something that's not on our agenda.
We have one guest.
Paul?
that,
Do you want to talk about something?
All right. Do we need another executive session?
No, not that I know.
Okay.
I don't know where you
Then-
got the last one, so I should have kept my mouth shut.
Can I have a motion to adjourn our meeting? Discussion.
Yes, no. we're not.
All in favor? And our motion, that carries our meeting.